This is IsAware, powered by Intersoft Associates. IsAware is your connection to exploring the systems and software that power businesses like yours with expert insight, experience, and advice.
Welcome back to IsAware. I'm Chris Bentliff, and I'm joined as always by Hai Goldstoff and Abe Unger. And guys, previously we talked about big data, which was a really great kind of deep dive into thinking about data for organizations and maybe dispelling some of the myths that this idea of big can mean something different to my business or organization. Today, I want to talk about integrating that data, making it meaningful into my company. And I think one of the important parts of that is thinking about how do I take all these disparate places or points of information and bring them into one thing, literally integrating the data. Can you talk to me about some of the challenges that businesses face when they don't do that, when they aren't thinking about collecting and aggregating different sources? Where does that leave us when we're thinking about how to use that data strategically?
There are a couple of issues. One is you run the risk of having multiple versions of the truth, where data in one system doesn't match data in another system. Which can generally be addressed. We've actually had that a number of times with SAP, where data in SAP in one module didn't match data in another module, and we developed rules on what ought to be done, and we basically integrated with SAP to find inconsistencies, so the client was aware of it. And another part of it is another problem with it is that in order to get some sort of actionable information, you've got to go to multiple systems and kind of put them together like a jigsaw puzzle, and that's clearly a waste of time. And you run the risk of whenever you have a manual process or even semi-automatic process, it's rife with errors.
Plus, the problem you also have is that if you don't have data in a place where everyone can get to, so aside from just the multiple versions, people aren't really talking to each other. So someone will do something and other people in the organization won't know about what's happening, and they'll go down a different path. Whereas if the data were centralized, you could all see what's going on and everyone can sort of understand where the business is heading, where we're going, and follow along.
That's what I was going to ask you about, some examples of that. So where in the real world does that show up? Where I have some different piece of information. I'm thinking about simple things like somebody changed their email address and we have that reflected over here, but not over here. Or somebody's got a promotion and their job title has changed, and so we want to send or treat them or think of them differently or segment them in some way. What are some examples in the real world where my data is having a mismatch?
It's not even a mismatch, but we can talk about that in a moment. But another part of it is just leveraging data that you have. Again, we have a client that has an online system, and people use their system, and every single transaction, there are a lot of large transactions, but it's not millions of smaller transactions, but every transaction was being put into QuickBooks. We disagreed with that. We certainly told them that QuickBooks should get more summary data than detailed data, and that should be housed in the hosting system. But nevertheless, and having having people manually put data into QuickBooks, was an impediment to scaling, because if they double their transactions, they got to double their staff, and it was rife with errors because they were transposition errors. So what we did was basically automate QuickBooks. We took the data from their system. We gave them an API that they could call that would take that data and put it into QuickBooks, so they would have the best of both worlds. They would have all the information in their hosting system, and the financial people could use QuickBooks which is what they're comfortable with, and they were able to double in size and in fact reduce staff. They didn't need that, not reduce, but repurpose staff. So that's a classic example of just rewriting data. What was the rest of the question?
Yeah, that's a great illustration actually of that. I think in my experience, a lot of companies will treat their ERP as kind of their single source of truth, that enterprise resource planning software, but it won't be talking to their customer resource or relationship manager. It won't be talking to maybe some of their marketing tools. It won't be talking to some of their service tools and things like that. And so as you're talking about QuickBooks and kind of this idea of making the two talk to each other, is that what I understand? So one of the things that we need to do for data integration is make sure that all these different tools are having a similar vocabulary so that one place is the place that will continually be updated, continually find or be that source of truth, as you said at the beginning. Hi, yes?
Leverage data that you have in different systems to come up with either a data warehouse or somewhere that you can do analytics. We've seen people who will take data out of a couple, like I said, take data out of one system, massage it in all different ways to come up with reports. And it's really easy to do with APIs today. We're working with a large corporation today about integrating a data feed directly into Salesforce. We've worked with a financial institution to get data from a number of different systems to interface with Salesforce as well. Financial systems, CRM, other CRMs, and again, create one version of the truth. You have any other examples, Abe?
It's an example along that lines is also where we have data coming in for all different people, demographics and information about those people. And by pulling in that data as individual records and just looking at it, you don't really see any connection between them. But as you start analyzing that and parsing that, you start to understand that there are concepts and there are hierarchies in that data alone that can help in terms of productivity. Where if you're reaching out to contact all of those people and you have, let's say, 12 rows of data, you're not contacting 12 different people because those 12 rows happen to be all the same person. So by taking all of that data from all those systems and putting that together, you can then stop reaching out to all of those as individuals and start working as some kind of a collection. And that's part of what we're doing for another client. And that eliminates a lot of, their calling that they have to do or emailing that they have to do, because rather than calling 12 people, when 12 different people are calling the same person and you get that, call and, oh, you're calling me again, or I just spoke to so-and-so, and, all that data now being integrated, it's one call, one person, and then you build that relationship with that client or that one person you're talking to. And now it's easier to deal with in future iterations of talking to that person because there's a connection as opposed to all different people. So, and that comes through processing and understanding that data that you're getting and centralizing it so that all of the systems can communicate.
It's a great point about the impact of data integration. And you mentioned the productivity and that, you're not duplicating efforts, but there's a really important customer-facing component to that, and where the customer is not frustrated with your lack of organization and getting 17 phone calls, or 15 people in the same organization are getting the same phone call when only one of those people should be the one who's running point. And when you have this sense of how your data is aggregated and integrated, it simplifies that, which streamlines that customer experience. What are some of the challenges? You mentioned, Abe, that with APIs, it's really easy to make different software talk to each other. Is it as simple as having a conversation with a software consultant and sort of figuring it out, or can there be some really unique and dynamic things that could be, issues that I need to think about or consider?
Sure, there can be in terms of data format. So if data is available in electronic format, then it's really simple. You got to get that data and then massage it to fit whatever it is that you're looking for. But at times data is not available in a digital format. And you may be dealing with something like archiving old data that's, let's say, sitting in files somewhere, and you're going to scan those and OCR those and recognize that text and import that. Or there's different data that comes in different formats, and let's say a Word document where it's not really in the right format that you can actually do anything with as is, and you have to sort of translate that. But that goes with understanding your data and what you have and building a path forward. And some of that may be automation where you can actually pull that in and parse that data properly, or there may be some kind of a workflow where some information is parsed and then a user goes in there, reviews the data, makes sure that it looks correct, and flows through and lets that go through the next part of the system. So it may not necessarily avoid a step of some kind of a transcription, but it certainly helps in terms of the workflow where it can be done. It can systems can actually pull that data for you. and you can verify that. So there are different ways of getting that data. Electronically makes it easy, API or any kind of electronic format, whether it's Excel or CSV or those different kinds of data formats. Those are easy.
Yeah, and to kind of answer your question as well, I mean, the answer is both. It's certainly talk with someone who understands software and understands consulting and can look at what you have, what you need, and where that information may be. And a proper conversation can uncover a number of potential opportunities and where that might be. And I like to give examples. We had one in a casual conversation with one of our clients, and as a result of that, we speeded up the payment process to their vendors dramatically because they didn't have to fill out manual forms that were extremely onerous with general ledger numbers and all sorts of stuff. We had it in the system, and then we were able to automate it easily. And without that conversation, we never would have known that that's a problem. So we leveraged what we had and what interfaces their systems had, and streamlined that process dramatically. And the vendors were happy because they got paid in a week.
Huh. Yeah, it removes a ton of human error and inefficiencies in that way. Who should I, when you say that you talked to, who are you talking to? Who in my organization should I be tasking to reach out to, a team like you guys and have these conversations? Is that an IT specialist? Is that somebody in administration? Who do you guys like to connect with?
Initially, certainly somebody senior, somebody who would be the process owner. It may be IT. They may be part of it. It might be the manager or the CEO, or depending on the organization. But ultimately, that conversation has to start there, and then dribble down to the people that are actually doing it. Because management might know the big picture, but the people actually using the software, and our job is to make their job easier, they'll talk to you about all the exceptions and what really happens, and that's really, really important on a number of different levels. First of all, it gives you a lot of information that you don't have, and if they get empowered as being part of the solution, they will make the solution better.
Absolutely. I think there's almost a sense of, I love how you said empowered. When there's buy-in, when there's excitement around seeing how these things can transform the ways we work, people get excited. People start to think about these things in different ways. They think about data in different ways. And in my experience, it can shape the future of a company when we stop thinking of busy work and we start thinking about the strategic advantage that some of this stuff can offer. Abe, earlier you talked about how easy it is technically when APIs can connect. I'm not a techno person. What's an API? What does that help me do? Is it something I got to think about? Is it something I got to flip a switch and turn on? How does an API work to make things so easy for me?
So the good news is that you don't have to know anything about it. That's what we do. And we can use that as the communication tool. So same way we're talking to each other this way, the API is how computers talk to each other. And that's what our developers, and that's what we deal with, is calling that API to get you that data you need. And all you care about is the end result, where you got that data in your system, and now you can make those decisions that you need to make now that you have the data accessible to you. So it's as easy as that. Give us the heavy lifting, we'll do it for you.
That's fantastic. It's kind of a snap the fingers, make a few connections. API stands for application processing interface, and that's how these tools are meant to communicate with each other. It's not a proprietary thing, right, Abe? It's something where they're meant to connect and designed to integrate.
Correct. The job of the API is to do that, is to give you that ability to communicate system to system without knowing the details of what's going on behind the scenes. Just give me my data and let me do what I need with it. And give it to me in a format that I can use. So
it's to get data from a system and put data or write data into a system. It can go both ways. And the other part about it is for those older systems that may not have it, you can create processes, which we do, which we have done regularly, to download data, process it, and communicate the old-fashioned way via downloads and uploads. And that, when you don't have the API, it actually has worked extremely well in the past. it's been totally seamless.
So fear of technology or of heavy lifting should not get in my way of starting to think more strategically about my data and integrating my data. You guys can manage that. I just need to have a better sense for what are the outcomes I'm looking for. Can you guys help me make them happen?
If you can communicate that, any good, software, professional should be able to help you, achieve what you're looking for.
Hi, Goldstoff and Abe Unger from Intersoft Associates. Thanks again, guys, for joining us today and having a great conversation about data integration. Looking forward to our next conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for IsAware, and a special thanks to our subscribers. Consider becoming one today. IsAware is powered by Intersoft Associates, who believes the more you know about your IT, the better. Visit us at intersoftassociates.com and schedule your free consultation to talk about how custom software can help your business.